How's it going, guys? I'm going to teach you how to build an electric motor. So the first step is you're going to want to build this box. And to do that, take your foam board. You're going to measure out two rectangles that are 7 inches by 4 inches. So there's 1 and 2. Next, you're going to need two 3 1/4 by 1. 3 3/4 by 1 3/4. And you're going to need two 6 3/4 by 1 3/4. Okay, so those 6 pieces are going to make up your box. Next, you're going to go ahead and cut these out. I recommend using an X-Acto knife. I don't have one, so I'm just going to do my best with this. So now that you cut your pieces out, you're going to have 2 of each size. You're going to take one of the big ones, put it aside for later. So you want to, let's start off with a small piece, and you want to align it with one edge flush, and you're going to leave some gap on this edge for the other piece to overlap with it, like so. So you can go ahead and start gluing it down. Alright, put the next long piece overlapping this piece. Then you're going to put the other small piece on this side overlapping with this piece. Finally, you put your last piece in. It's going to overlap with this corner and butt up against this corner, like that. Okay, now your box is complete. Once you finish making your box, you're going to want to take the other piece and you're going to want to prep it so that way you could put your magnet just barely through the inside, and you're going to want to make a hole to put your switch in so the leads can go into the box. You're going to want to measure about halfway in between so you cut a hole for your switch. Depending on the size of your switch, you're going to have to make a different size hole. So that's going to be about the size of my switch. I'm going to go ahead and cut that out. So now we got a hole for the switch. This should easily slide into, like so. Next, you're going to want to recess out a spot for the tip of your magnet to slide into. So, take this out. Again, you're going to want to put it right in the middle. So you're going to want to cut it. You don't want to cut all the way through the second layer of paper. Just cut the first layer and scoop the foam out. So now you have an indent that the magnet will slip into, but you won't see it from the top side. Okay. So this is what your box is going to look like. This. The next step is to take about 1 meter of magnet wire, and you're going to want to coil it to make your motor coil. I use pill container and wrap it around that. That usually makes for a good size. So take about 3 inches of slack, leave it hanging off the end, and the rest you're going to want to wrap tightly around the container. Now, that may not be enough, so I'm going to do another half off of that, and say another half off of that. So now you have your 2 leads coming off opposite sides, right? So go ahead and slip your coil off, try not to mess it up, and you're going to want to take your loose ends and loop it through the inside to tighten and secure the coil. Do that about 3 or 4 times, nice and tight. Okay, that's one side. Second side, do the same thing directly on the other side from that loop. Okay. So now you have your coil. After that, I'm going to take 2 large paper clips and bend them straight. Now, about a ½ inch from the top, bend it going downwards, and about halfway from that bend it back upwards and tighten that all together. So now you're going to have a Y. Do that with both paper clips. Here's your 2 Y's, or V's. So, back to your top piece. My recommendation is find the center of this indent and poke a hole through it with a pencil or the paper clip. So now you have this dot in the center. That's going to be the center of your coil, essentially. Place your coil over that dot and center it. And then about, say, 1/4 of an inch off the end of your coil, put a mark. That's where you're going to put your terminal holders. So those you could just poke through with some force. One. Okay. So this is going to be the basic design for your coil. This will rest on top like that. Okay. Next step is measure the radius of your coil. So this outer radius is about, diameter is about 1.5 inches, so we're going to say 3/4 of an inch is our radius. So that's going to be the height at which the bottom of the V is going to be off of our foam board. That enables it to get as close to a magnet as possible. So we're going to measure 1.25 inches and 3/4 of an inch. So now that you have the height, you want to take some electrical tape or any sort of tape and wrap it above that height, so that way the paper clip won't slip through the hole you made. Do that with the other one also. Test out your coil to make sure that it doesn't touch when you spin it. This is good. Next thing you want to do is put your terminal supports in. Again, wrap tape on the underside to try it and keep it as secure and straight as possible. There's one. Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention. Should probably clip them so that way there's only a small amount hanging off after the tape, because you're going to solder to that later. There's the second support. That's how it should look. So after you get these in like this, you want to take your switch, put it through, so that way it's going to stay like this in its final position. You want to solder one end of it to one terminal of the battery. Now you have the battery connected to one end. Second part would be to solder one end of the terminal, the other end of the terminal, to a length of wire. I have this connected like that. Next, I want to solder the other free end of the switch to one of the supports. Okay, so now you have the battery One end of the battery connected to the switch, and the other side of the switch is connected to a support. The other terminal still has the free wire on it. That's going to go to your other support. Okay. That's all the electrical components you need to do. I recommend maybe gluing the battery to the underside or taping it so that way it doesn't wobble around. I'm going to go ahead and tape it. Now that's the underside of your motor. The 2-inch bar magnet is simply going to slide in that hole. And you're going to tape it down also, or glue it. So now that you just glued taped the magnet in and have everything taped and secured, you're done with the underside. You can then close up your box if you'd like. I recommend switching the push pins to the top just to keep it closed, so that way you have access to it if you ever need. So now go back to your coil. You're going to want to, magnet wire is insulated. Doesn't look like it, but it's insulated. So what you have to do is you're going to have to strip all the coating off the outside of the wire for at least a 1/2 inch on both sides. So now you have both sides stripped. You can go ahead and clip off each side to about 1 inch. You want to make sure that the coil will still sit on the supports. Next step would be to take your Sharpie and you're going to want to coat only half of one side. So I don't know if you guys can see this, but this side is the coated side. That side is the uncoated side. This allows for current only to pass through on the uncoated side. Now, you can put your coil on the supports. Try to make sure that your leads are as straight as possible to get a nice rotation. And I don't know if you guys know what side your on switch is, but I know which side is on for me, so I turn it on. You can see the coil is kind of freaking out right now by itself. That means that the current's flowing through it and the magnet is interacting with it. So let's give it a rotation, see if it works. No. This means that it's not making contact at the right time. So take your coil, your lead, and give it a little turn so that way you can change when it makes contact. Let's try it now. And there it goes. That's how you make a simple motor.